All right, good evening, Midwest Star Wars Fanatics. It is Star Wars Nerd 574 here, along with my co-host Travis. And man, do we got a lot to talk about this week. First of all, I want to say welcome everybody, and glad you guys can join us tonight before snow again. And getting a lot of snow ahead in this way, but of course we're going to talk about the Book of Boba Fett. But first, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, TRG Toys and Collectibles. You're looking for those good collectible items, make sure you hit them up at trgtoys.com. And really just want to really get into it, man. I mean, we have it was an amazing episode last week of the Book of Boba Fett, which everyone calls the Mandalorian season 2.5. But it definitely was kind of what we expected and talked about on the last episode, but it kind of went a lot deeper and kind of leaving Boba Fett out of the picture, which we thought was pretty interesting. So, Travis, were you expecting just that kind of episode going into that?
No, not at all. I think we talked about last week, the theme song playing at the end, sort of a dead giveaway that, hey, Mando was going to show back up. I was totally expecting the episode to be like normal, and then they make a call at the end, and they get a hold of Mando. I didn't know it was going to be Mando heavy, Mando focus episode. Even as I was watching, I was like, okay, now that he's done this, it's going to cut back over. But nope, it just kept chugging along as a Mandalorian episode.
Yep. And for all you guys that are watching tonight, make sure feel free to leave a message in the chat. Let us know that you're watching, and if you have any questions or comments as we're going, we would love to hear from y'all. And we'll get right into it. I mean, it started. I mean, there was just no brainer. Here comes Mando coming through a freezer. Obviously back on the bounty hunter job, and it was just unreal. I don't think we've really kind of seen a scene like this in a long time in Star Wars. I mean, the closest thing we've ever got, I think, in this was when Darth Maul got cut in half. I mean, how excited was the scene? And it was just unreal.
Yeah, no, it was I mean, as far as Star Wars action, violence level, which Star Wars is pretty low on the violence level, this was right up there. Like, it was no really pulled punches, no holding back. It was seeing people getting sliced, thrown around the room. It was really cool though, because I think the first episode of Mandalorian season 1 was really the only time you saw him doing a lot of really bounty hunter heavy type stuff with IG-11. A little bit when he rescued the child from the stormtroopers and things, but it was never like all out action. Like, this guy is a bounty hunter, not stepdad watching Grogu for 2 seasons. So it was really cool, and I think kind of see him go back to that and sort of show off that action.
Yeah, I mean, it was just it was good. I mean, that's what a lot of us have been waiting for the Book of Boba Fett, and don't get me wrong, I still love the Book of Boba Fett. It was a great it's been great telling that story, but this was some of the kind of the action that we needed a little bit to go with this. But I'll get into that a little bit later, what I think this is all leading up to. But just seeing him wield that Darksaber, but then you saw right away, took us back to Star Wars Rebels, how heavy that saber was for him when he was using it, and how he was struggling, and of course he ends up slicing his leg. So I thought that was kind of interesting how they kind of went with that approach to kind of show that it's still a struggle for someone to use that. I mean, what did you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, the whole time I was, I guess we knew he still had the Darksaber, we assumed he did. And kind of just waiting for that reveal. And I think when he just, adds it to a sort of, hey, this is just a weapon within my arsenal here, it's kind of cool to see him bust that out and start using it. And yeah, I mean, I think they did a really good job handling the fact that it's not, real light and, finesse and controlled around real easy until you've kind of mastered it and trained it with it, which I think is, we'll talk about a little bit later, but then, maybe setting up for what's going to happen in season 3. Maybe he goes and meets somebody that they saw at the end of season 2 that's now the, caretaker of his little buddy, to get some training on how to use such a weapon. So I think they're, planting some seeds that I think will pay off coming up.
Yeah, it was just it was just kind of funny to see how clumsy he was with it, and how it took him to struggle to even to cut the guy in half, which I was still amazed. Then you kind of see, through the curtains how he kind of struggled to even behead the guy. So I mean, you
Hmm.
already saw that was going to be an issue with them, and some training, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Some do's and hopes and nots that we could see from there. Um, but then it gets really interesting. So he collects on his bounty, goes there, and we go to the Halo type city, with like a
Hmm.
little like circle there and everything. Um, but what I thought was really cool is, you know, we got to see, the armor and Paz Vizsla again. And their thrill of, hey, Mando's still around, it didn't seem, like they were too excited about it. And obviously we kind of know why. Obviously, I mean, if they're the last couple Mandalorians left from that clan. But then things get really interesting. So um, they found out that Mando has the dark saber, and this is where everything kind of takes for the turn. And like I said, if you guys are watching, let us know. Feel free to chime in. If you have any questions or comments, we would love to hear. But it's definitely this scene was pretty interesting. I mean, what were your thoughts when this first started, and all of a sudden that dark saber was shown?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was pretty cool. I think it was a good segue into letting the armor kind of give a recap of, what happened. We knew Moff Gideon in previous season talked about, you know, Mandalore's been leveled, turned it to glass, all that sort of stuff. We didn't know, how and why,
Yeah,
and still we're kind of unsure, like, what happened to Bo-Katan and her having the dark saber. So I thought it was, finally sort of answered that, yep, she did
yeah,
have it, but the whole didn't win it by combat sort of a thing. So gave kind of a little history on Mandalorian, sort of culture and lore. Um, Showed the creepy, droids destroying Mandalore.
yeah,
Kind of like a KS-2O whatever from from
yep,
Rogue One style droids. Apparently they quite quite combat capable. But no,
yep,
so I thought it was cool that they, touched on, Bo-Katan just had it given to her. That's why things, quote unquote, fell apart
yeah.
according to like tradition and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah, like I mean, she did mention with the legend how it was like, and it kind of, we had that question a lot. Well, it was handed to Bo-Katan before in Rebels, so why does she still have it? And obviously, we know that if it's just handed to you, it's bad luck and you're cursed. And it seems to be that's part of the reasoning. And I mean, that obviously that dark saber has been around for a long time, so they know a little bit of something on that. Um,
mhm.
but then all of a sudden, you kind of see. Um, Mando helping out and everything, and you kind of see a little bit of jealousy start pop up real quick. Obviously, you know the the dark saber has been around for a long time, and it was in Paz Vizsla's um, family. It was the original Jedi that actually created that dark saber. And what was your take on that? And were you surprised on how quick that challenge already came for the dark saber?
Yeah, I mean, it was almost like as soon as the armor was explaining the history and said the name, like it cut to him, and it was like, uh oh. I was like, all right, what's gonna happen? I didn't expect it to be that quick. I mean, like the guy, hey, good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Within like the first hour of you being here, like I'm gonna challenge you to rule all of Mandalore by claiming the dark saber. So it escalated very quickly, more so than I thought. But I think it was a cool scene prior to that, kind of trying to show a little bit of the training with the armor and kind of explaining, you know, the weight of it. You can't fight against it. You have to kind of become one with the blade, sort of a thing, in order to wield it properly. So that was kind of a cool moment. And then the fight scene was cool to see too. Two Mandalorians sort of going at it, hand to hand combat style.
Yeah, it was definitely it was neat to see, and how how the Beskar holds up against the dark saber, because obviously they're sitting there beating the crap out of each other's armor, and obviously looking for the weak spots and everything. Um, and it just it takes that turn. But when we think about everything that's going on with the Mandalorian, and we actually kind of we got excited. I think I actually skipped the slide on there, but we're not going to go back. On there was when he also came back. He had his Beskar spear, which was all of a sudden it was like a red flag for the armor. We need to get rid of that. I thought that was kind of interesting that they were so quick to destroy and dispose of that. I mean, what were your thoughts on that one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, her comment of, Beskar weapons can also, hold up against a lightsaber, but they can also, apparently, Beskar weapons can penetrate Beskar armor, which, you know, I guess is a problem if you're not a Mandalorian. So I guess it was kind of interesting. Like they were sort of saying, like, we don't want other people to have things that can be used against us, even if we're in possession of them necessarily. So that was, yeah, I don't know if they're, again, I guess we kind of know in the back of our minds there's different factions of Mandalorians and they have much different outlooks on, you know, the rules, removing your helmet, not removing your helmet, things of that nature. You know, Bo-Katan and this group obviously are kind of at odds. So,
Yeah.
maybe they're thinking, hey, if you ever turn on us, yeah, this spear is a problem.
Yeah. So, and obviously, they melted down the spear, and he had something we don't know what it is yet, made for our little buddy Baby Yoda, or Grogu, whatever you want to call it, everybody. But it was, of course, we don't know what it is yet, so I'm sure we'll find out here soon, or maybe we won't find
Mhm.
out until, hopefully we won't find out until season 3 of The Mandalorian, because but it it is interesting how he cares for, or, like, he's starting his own little clan, and is the attachment that he got to that. But what I think is very interesting when you talk about the attachment is how obviously Jedi are forbidden to have attachment, um, but at the same time he doesn't care. He wants to go see him.
Mhm.
So obviously we go back and then we get in the fight and again, and Mando wins, and then we talk about the whole helmet removal, and that's where
Mm.
this whole episode kind of went completely different than what I thought it was going to go. So it just amazed me how quick they were like, okay, you removed your helmet, you're out. There's only one way to do that, and that's go back into the springs under Mandalore. I mean, how unexpected was that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I guess we sort of could have thought at some point, hey, this is going to come back to bite them, I guess, because they were so, steadfast on don't take your helmet off. Is it, repeat it like the mantra. Has it ever been removed? Have you ever had it removed by somebody else? That sort of a thing. But yeah, they definitely, as soon as it was like, all right, yep, you're out of here. Even though you technically have the dark saber, and technically the ruler of Mandalore, we don't care. You took your helmet off. You're not one of us any longer.
Yeah, I mean, it was just so quick, and she kept her back turned as he left, and just kind of was like, we're done with you. We're not, you're not part of this clan anymore, and if you want to be a part, you have to go through all this, which I think is going to lead into something else. Why this whole series has been made. Like I said, we'll get into that a little bit later. But then we get to see Mando take a commercial flight back to Tatooine, which I thought was pretty funny, especially the scene where they ask him to take all of his weapons out, and it takes him forever just to unload everything on there. But that's when we get the surprise. So Mando gets back to Tatooine, and we run into an old friend, Peli Motto, and this part is probably the hardest I've laughed in Star Wars in a while. When we talk about what's all happening here, first of all, we get the Naboo Starfighter, which was pretty awesome to see that, and everything, and how she's pretty much a used car salesman. I mean, that's what it is.
Mhm.
But how cool is this scene? And then we'll talk a little bit about the Jawa dating here as well. But this was a pretty interesting and kind of set up scene for the rest of this is pretty much the rest of the show.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure what to expect when, he was going back to Tatooine, and I was like, okay, well, here's how we'll run into Finnick and Boba Fett, and that'll take off from there. But nope, we got the construct your ship, the history of the ship, test flight, all that sort of stuff, montage that and I was reading some people's reviews and critiques, and they're like, oh, this was just rebuilding the ship again. We've seen him rebuild the Razor Crest before. We didn't need the whole thing. But I mean, I thought it was still entertaining, kind of getting the history of the ship, watching them put it together, work with the droids and Pelly and everything. So, I mean, Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a kind of a humorous, lighthearted, sort of a fun scene after sort of the seriousness of the first
Yeah.
half of the episode with people getting chopped up, getting kicked out of the clan, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and then we also had another little surprise, which if you're a gamer, which I'm not too much on the gaming side, but I know a lot of gamers were pretty excited when this little guy popped up.
Mhm.
Um, and then everyone starts, oh, we're gonna start seeing, the other Jedi and all this stuff, and um, but it was just fun just to see, the robot, bouncing around and everything. I mean, how as a gamer, I know Travis, you probably played a lot more than I have
Yeah. I mean,
on that.
I've played Jedi Fallen Order, and I know Cal has. It's been one of the characters people have really liked and were like, oh, we should see him in the movie sometime or in the animated, but he hasn't shown up, just been in the games. I personally don't think this droid is the droid
Yeah,
from that game. I think just like everything else, this is obviously a BD class droid. So there's probably thousands, tens of thousands of these things across the galaxy. But I thought it was a cool little Easter egg to toss in that we've never seen them in live action. We've only ever seen them in the game, and similar to other things they've brought in from, when there's like the Lothcat things from the animated series they bring into live action. So now they're pulling from some of the game, little Easter eggs and pulling into live action is a pretty cool little touch, I think, for fans.
and Greg got on and said it was Wizard. I was waiting for someone
Yeah.
to make that comment on there. But Greg, thanks for watching. Kat out there, Audrey's out there. Thank you for everyone who's coming in and taking a look at what's going on here. So we're building this. This is where we start getting a little bit of a few Easter eggs. Obviously, we're building the Naboo starfighter. We're getting that all done, and then he takes it out for a ride. He's getting ready to take the ship out for the ride. Of course, we already know that he doesn't like droids. He's not a big fan of droids. So we've already seen a modification to the ship already, which we can obviously tell who fits in that. So that might be, sorry, spoiler, Mandalorian season 3, but that is a small little space for somebody, and there's probably only one person that could fit in there. Good old Grogu. But I think it was pretty cool, especially the little shout out to Beggars Canyon and getting to see that. I mean, how neat was that to get back to the prequels a little bit?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I mean, at first when they unveiled the ship, I was like that doesn't really, fit the sort of Mando aesthetic. It's like 'cause my visual remembrance of this is, bright yellow. Now this is pod racing from episode one with Anakin and things. But I thought they did a cool job. Like it's all the modifications. It's almost like hot rodded out, where it's got like almost like a big carburetor sitting on the hood of it.
Yeah.
Um, all stripped down. So it was pretty cool to see. And then yeah, I mean, kind of going through the pod racing course from episode one through Beggar's Canyon. Of course, there's the Womp Rat that used to bullseye those with the speeder back home, Luke Skywalker style, and things like that. So it was some good callbacks. Anytime they go to Tatooine, it seems like it's going to be Easter egg city for
Yeah.
people, watching the episode.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about the show is that we can get to some of the old stuff and with the new stuff and the old stuff. Um, but the most surprising thing so far with me is that we still haven't seen a lot of tie-ins yet to some of the new stuff, other than Luke Skywalker grabbing at the end of Mandalorian season 2,
Mhm.
grabbing Baby Yoda for started Jedi training and starting his little school and everything. But there's been some of that we haven't seen yet, which surprises me. But I think this next episode, and we'll get into that a little bit later, is going to be full of a lot of surprises. I mean, I just got a feeling that most of us are going to have to really take some time to digest what's going to happen these next 2 episodes for going into the next season, or I should say going into season 3 of The Mandalorian. Um, so that was pretty interesting there. Also we get a call back to the X-wings, which I thought
Mhm.
was pretty neat. So obviously, Mando gets pulled over again, in a way, and is they're trying to get his information, and of course he recognizes the voice, um, and he takes off pretty quick. So I thought that was pretty funny to have a little
Mhm.
callback to that, and then how quick Mando took off from there. So they kind of know what side he's on and how he's helping out with kind of getting rid of the Empire and stuff. But um, I mean, so far up to this episode, I mean, we got no Boba Fett, no Fennec, really no flashbacks. I mean, it was just a straight up The Mandalorian episode. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you think, and this was the biggest debate I've seen online the whole week, was did this actually hurt the Book of Boba Fett by having one of your best episodes with not having Boba Fett in it? Or is it just because of the way it may possibly be set up? It could be, it could be epic of what we're going to get next.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a setup episode to start to try to tie things together. I mean, I think in a way, what this almost sort of, maybe slightly confirms is this entire timeline section of live action that they're doing is the Mandalorian sort of like universe. Like this is the
Yeah,
Mando thing, and kind of everything, even Boba Fett, Ahsoka got introduced through Mando, all these, I think all roads kind of lead back to the Mandalorian as sort
sure.
of the, the hub to it all. To have an episode that was total Mandalorian with no Boba Fett was surprising,
Yeah,
but I don't think it was necessarily bad for it to say like its best episode didn't have Boba Fett. It was just a really well done episode. And it's kind of
yeah,
reminded you of how much you do like the Mandalorian series. But Boba Fett series has its, good features as well. We talked about the building up the Tuskens and the kind of character development arc that Boba Fett's been on, from going to be kind of, ruthless, out for himself bounty hunter to I want to build up a family and like a clan of my own, which is what Mandalorians do. They build clans. So I mean,
yeah,
I don't think it deters or detracts away from the overall series at all.
yeah. Greg put out the Mando you were looking for. So it definitely it it was very interesting because I kept wondering when we were going to see him. What's going on? Why is he left out of this episode? And there's a couple things that went through my head. Obviously, we see one familiar face at the end. Obviously, Finnick comes and says, "Hey, we need your muscle here. We want to pay you." And of course, he doesn't take it. He says, "Hey, it's on the house." But one of the things I'm thinking is we're going. I just really think that we're going to see a lot of cameos and a lot of characters that we are, for one, either expecting or not expecting, which I know is kind of a broad statement, but I think it's going to be kind of like an overload in a way. I really think that, why did we not see Boba Fett? Maybe he was out recruiting some of his people. Maybe we're going to still see some of the classic bounty hunters with some of the new bounty hunters. But here's the thing, and if for everybody who's out there still listening with us and everything, is we've still got, obviously, Vizsla in the armor. We got their clan. We still got, Bo-Katan, Axe Wolf. We still have, all them. And then we've got the Mando and, obviously Grogu. We have no clue yet what's going on with that. Um, I mean, do we see, is Boba Fett, is the Mandalorian, maybe the Mandalorian is not about Mando? Could Boba Fett be one of the people who actually helps restore Mandalore back to its power? Here's a guy that doesn't really have a lot of ties with anything, but yet here he is wanting to take a leadership. He's wanting to be the Don of Tatooine. Is there more that we're kind of overlooking, and is Boba Fett the key to all this?
And that's interesting because I think this episode sort of proves out in a way that just because a series is called Boba Fett or a series called Mandalorian or maybe even, a series called Ahsoka or anything else, that other characters we've introduced can show up and play, a major part in it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think what happens in the next couple episodes and what the end of this series will really sort of set the stage on, is Boba Fett really going to stay, criminal underworld, ruler, or is he going to have different aspirations, or is it going to
yeah,
morph beyond that into, maybe he becomes a resource that Mandalorian Mando himself can use for help, trying
I
to
mean,
consolidate things or whatever.
and on top of that, I mean, we've already seen what that dark saber does to people. It it gives them that power. It gives them, will something happen to where Boba Fett ends up yielding the dark saber? I mean, we don't know, and is Mando actually going to go find Grogu training? I mean, how is he keeping in contact? That's what I think. I think all this stuff's kind of interesting because
Hmm.
we're set up for a few different things. I mean, could we see Luke again? Is Luke going to help teach Mando how to use the dark saber? Are we going to get that canon Sabine moment? Or maybe Sabine. Maybe Luke and they find out and Ahsoka has a connection with Sabine. I mean, there's just so many factors right now that's open, and with everything connected together, I mean, it's like it's limitless on what we could actually do.
Hmm.
Greg, do you think Crimson Dawn will come into play at some point? Greg, if they don't, I will be shocked.
Hmm.
I really think Crimson Dawn is behind the Pikes movement on Tatooine. But you never know. I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, we know they're still around. And I mean, how cool? How cool? Let's be honest. How cool would it be to see again? Kira, Han Solo. If Han Solo makes that cameo that everyone said he's gonna do, Luke Skywalker, Boba Fett, kind of all these characters, kind of getting that. I mean, I don't know. There's just so many. I mean, Travis,
Hmm.
what are your thoughts on this, man? Because it's hard to tell until 3 in the morning when we up watching it. That night we'll know. But
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think we've talked about this a few times previously. If I was hedging bets here as like a odds maker, I would hedge my bets towards Crimson Dawn being name dropped, alluded to, something involving them. And part of it too is just a lot of it based on the trajectory things are going with the Pikes, and that they had dealings with Crimson Dawn in the past and things of that nature, but also the reports of the Kira solo series.
yeah,
Kira by herself solo, and unfortunately not Kira with my buddy Han Solo, but that series and just knowing what they've done in the past with introduce Boba Fett, new series, introduce Ahsoka, new series.
yeah,
Hey, Kira's coming up. How do we remind people and get people excited about this? Well, let's have Kira show up, and then we can either maybe continue Crimson Dawn from that point on in this timeline, or go back to where she, got involved with Darth Maul at the end of the Solo movie and
yeah.
fill in those gaps. So I expect her to show up, I think, at some point, just given all the reports we're having on that series.
And then we also got to remember too. I mean, now that we've seen the rise of Skywalker, we know the Empire is still out there. Obviously, we've seen that through the Mandalorian. We know that they're building. We know that they're back at it. And then we still got factors out there that we don't know where they're at. For example, Ezra and Thrawn.
Hmm.
I mean, Ezra could end up being a part of this, helping, since he was there when Kanan was training Sabine. There's more, there's like so many options that could actually, I mean, there's all these same puzzle pieces could fit in the same spot right now. And that's what I
Hmm.
think is really interesting. I think a lot of people are missing that, is that this story has been that good to where any puzzle piece right now can fit in there and really just, throw us for a loop. And that's what
Hmm.
I'm really a betting, for me being a betting man, I would put some money on this episode. It's going to make us go wow and go crazy waiting for the final one. So I don't
Hmm.
know, but
Yeah,
um,
and I think you said too, with all the kind of options that they have, even though this is technically in a time period that's between two things that we've already seen in the films, with the Skywalker saga kind of bookending both the beginning and
yeah,
end of this. It's still such an unexplored time period that
yeah,
you have tons of freedom and things to dip into, and it really doesn't mess up the canon. It doesn't mess up the First Order showing up. It doesn't mess up any of that stuff that a lot of times prequels and things, sometimes have that issue to where, well, what's going to happen because certain things have to fall in place. But in this one, it's been full of surprises nonstop. That's for sure.
well, that, and the fact that I think we've caught up with everything, so our timelines have all caught up. We've already
Hmm.
know that Ahsoka is out there. We've already know Mando knows Ahsoka, so they're probably having some kind of communication still. Um, it's just which direction this is going to go, because the ultimate path. Obviously, when we get to the the prequel or the sequels, I'm sorry, a lot of these characters are forgot about, or if they are there, we just know that their ships show up. Like we saw Razor Crest, but obviously that must not be Mando unless he finally got his Razor Crest. But what I find interesting is in the Rise of Skywalker, we hear two voices at the end, talking to Rey, which is Ezra and Ahsoka. So at some point, those two become part of the Force, because that is how everybody else who was the Jedi talking to them always died. So I think that's interesting to see, is if that's going to lead into anything, if we're going to see those answers. I know it's a lot for 2 episodes, which so I doubt we see hardly any of that in these 2 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same point, I think now we're going to get that, oh my gosh, this is going to happen, and I think we're going to get set up, for the Ahsoka series and the Mandalorian series as well. I think that's kind of like, I think that's going to be kind of the and a name that Greg, you talk about Crimson Dawn. One thing that we have overlooked in this whole entire thing is Thrawn is still out there. Remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Thrawn is still out there. So we know Thrawn's pulling some strings somewhere. Could he be the one that is controlling the Pikes right now? And
yeah, I had
so
thought about that.
So who knows? I mean, yes, could be Crimson Dawn, or could Thrawn maybe, kind of building his way, with them, maybe taking over the new leader of Crimson Dawn. Who knows? But we know Kira's out there. We know Thrawn's out there. We know Ezra's out there. We know Sabine's out there, and we know Ahsoka's out there. Some out of those 5, and we know Han Solo and Luke's out there. So out of those 7, we know we're probably going to see a couple of them. There's going to be something's going to pop up here soon. So I mean, you got any other theories on that one?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, there's just so many options. It's hard to really, the last couple episodes we were talked about and discussed. I had a pretty good feeling, like, okay, Black Chrysanthemum's going to show back up, because I alluded to that. Mando's going to show up. I had, some good feelings about things I was expecting to see, but man, this next episode, I have no idea what I'm going to watch tomorrow when I see it. I mean, at the end when Fennec said, "Hey, we need your help," it seemed like Mando was like, "Yep, I'll be there, but I got to run an errand first."
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's actually going to go see Grogu and Luke before he joins back up, or kind of how the sequence of events are going to take place in that. So, next episode could start off with still more, Mando stuff.
I mean, we might not even see Mando anymore for this series. I mean,
yeah,
if he's going off this, I mean, we don't know if he knows where he's at yet and everything he takes off. That's why I think we're going to see some surprises this next episode, because I think that's what, Boba Fett's obviously doing something behind the scenes. And I think he's rounding up some of his old buddies, maybe, and maybe some new ones. Who knows? Maybe JJ, if you're out there watching, you're probably asleep right now. But even Cad Bane, who knows? We could probably get that turn up as well, if they didn't go with the old theory of Boba Fett took him out. But yeah, I think this episode, just get ready, everybody. It's going to be. I think it's going to be huge. If it's not, it'll, in a way, I think, especially with only 2 episodes left. I mean, do you think this episode really needs to blow it out of the water to kind of save the series?
I don't know if I'd go so far as to say save the series, because I've had really no complaints or issues on it at all. I know a lot of people just like to.
I should say save the series
nitpick
from
played.
the toxic fans. The toxic.
Yeah,
the
okay.
toxic.
Let's say, yeah. It's like, I don't lump you in with believing that it needs to be saved, but I mean, I think, yeah, I think it will. I guess I'm not gonna say it needs to, but I think it will, because I just think based on previous seasons of The Mandalorian, it'd been a very similar sort of, trend where it starts off strong. There's maybe a couple filler story, filler is for, I don't consider them filler, because I think story development and character development is important. Some people don't agree and want action nonstop and all these things. So you had those sort of episodes, and then it's always been, the last 2 really start to escalate things, really start to build up. So I expect this next episode to leave us like, okay, we've got 7 days until the next episode drops. I can't wait for it because it's going to, just blow our minds and pick up where this next episode is going to leave off. So, yeah, I'm expecting to kind of sit there at the end, jaw drop. That's like, oh, you're going to end it on that, and we got to wait another week for the final episode.
Other than that, and of course, then we have another gap again before we get our next series. So it'll be
That's the painful part.
It's just I mean, but we got some good stuff. Obviously, we haven't talked a lot about Obi-Wan yet because of just the timeline that's in. It's obviously way before all this, so that's not really going to play much of a factor, I think, in this series. So we haven't talked a lot about that. We'll probably talk more about that when we're closer to that release time. But again, like I said, the Ahsoka series, I mean, we know who's all still out there. It's going to be kind of like a Rebels reunion, I think. But we've got a lot of great Star Wars content, coming at us. So it's a good time to be a Star Wars fan, like it or hate it. It's there, and it's nice to have this content again, and and enjoy it while we can. I mean, what are your thoughts, Travis? What's the next series that you're waiting for?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about, Obi-Wan, and we're gonna watch it because it's gonna be good. Ewan McGregor's always great as Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what they do. I'm kind of wondering about the Black Chrysanthemum sort of tie-in potentially now that he's been introduced. Are they gonna throw him? Obviously
Yeah.
be
So
set
yeah,
back
we
in the
could have a
past.
little bit of
Are they
content.
gonna, they gotta introduce him, in that series just because people be like, oh yeah, I recognize him. That's how we got that scar that I saw. The people that haven't read the comics, and know, kind of the
Yeah.
background. So that series will be good. But I think overall for me, the one I'm most excited for is probably going to be Ahsoka again, for kind of all the reasons you mentioned, because it's part of this sort of core Mandalorian timeline. It's going to answer a bunch of questions that we don't have answers to. We kind of already know what Obi-Wan's deal is going to be. He watches over Luke for 18 years before he goes.
Watches over Luke, dies on the Death Star. There we go.
We already know kind of what. There's a very small gap of what we haven't seen or heard about yet with Obi-Wan, but we actually know what he's going to do. Yeah. So that one, Andor, we haven't talked about that one much because I think we're pretty, still pretty light on these sort of concrete details, production, etc. But I think that one again, like we've talked about, will be a good series just because it's going to be non-Jedi focused. It'll be kind of more, gritty, down to earth, spy sort of stuff, I think, which will be cool.
Yeah, and we now know that Disney will go dark. I mean, like I said, that this episode, I mean, I was not expecting that first 5-10 minutes of let's chop up everybody with the Darksaber and go from there. But yeah, Andor is the one I'm really excited for. I'm excited for the Ahsoka series just because I love Rebels and I love everything that's kind of come from that. But the Andor, because of the darkness and kind of like it's just a different story. Like Rogue One, I loved it. It was probably one of my favorite Star Wars stories. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes from there. But yeah, just so much in. And hear me out, obviously, no big wigs are watching us tonight. Sorry, but how amazing would this be to be setting up a movie or a series for the Mandalorians actually kind of rebuilding Mandalore, kind of getting that Mandalorian, I mean, we possibly could have 3 clans now by the end of this series. So it's something to think about, maybe we're going to get a surprise about Mandalore and rebuilding and starting to, because then you can take the whole stories away from the Jedi and worry about the Mandalores, Mandalorians and all that stuff. So I mean, who knows?
I mean, and what they end up doing with it, time will tell. But Disney has seen what works for. Let's use Marvel MCU for an example. We introduce all these characters. We have a few little cameos here and there. Then we can bring everybody back together for, a big crossover, in comic terms, crossover sort of event or series or something of that nature. So, my expectation is at some point, whether it's, 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, after a couple seasons of Mando, maybe another season of Boba Fett, maybe an Ahsoka season 1 or 2, and then whatever other things they come out with, that they're going to bring everybody together and, do some sort of big thing, Avenger style, if you will, with it.
Yeah, so it'll be. I can't wait till 3 this morning. I'm sure, like I said, I'll wake up. Um, I don't understand it, but I have woke up every morning at right before 3 o'clock for the show without an alarm clock, which has been strange. So maybe my body's just ready and excited and wants to know what's going on. But um, like I said, I personally think that we are going to see a ton of cameos and appearances this next episode.
Mhm.
There's going to be some connections and everything going on, so it'll be interesting to see. So that's kind of my prediction. I don't know, what's your big prediction for tomorrow's episode?
Yeah, I'm thinking, yeah, definitely some callbacks, some people that we're expecting to see, some unexpected thing, like, oh wow, I can't believe they pulled that person in, because yeah, we're basically in sort of the recruitment mode, like you
Yeah.
said. This episode could start off with going back in time like a couple days and say like, oh well, Finnick was off doing this and Mando was doing this. Here's what Boba Fett was off doing, and here's why you didn't see him in the last episode, because he was off recruiting his own people and connections.
He's off
So
recruiting his own and riding around on the Rancor. So we hopefully will.
yeah, we still. I mean, they totally set that up. At some point in the next 2 episodes, we're going to see Boba Fett ride a Rancor.
If we
That
don't,
is
that will be amazing that they set that up to let us down like that. But yeah, so everybody, thank you so much tonight. Had another great show, great time talking the Mandalorian. I keep saying it because that's what it felt like. The Book of Boba Fett. Very anxious to see what will happen tomorrow morning. And
Mhm.
again, we'll be live again next Tuesday, 8 o'clock again, to talk about this episode, the episode that's coming up. So until then, remember, you can follow Travis and myself at the hashtag show. You can see our social media handles that's here as well. And also, again, thank you to TRG Toys and Collectibles, for them helping us sponsor this show. And remember, trgtoys.com. Find your collectible needs from Marvel to Star Wars. He has it all. So until then, may the force be with you, and we will see you all next week.